Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, everybody at home, and welcome to Houselights, specifically the Birdhouse, the House of Bird, Brad Bird. And we are talking about The Incredibles, his first CGI motion picture that came out in 2004. This is a Pixar film. This was his first film with Pixar, and also the first Pixar film, and maybe only, to be rated PG. I can't remember if it's the only one, but it was definitely the first one. And this one is, I think, a big reason why Brad Bird's even in the conversation about why we're doing this chunk, this House of Bird, like going through his directorial works. And this movie made such a huge splash when it came out. I mean, everybody was talking about it. Everybody has a favorite character. I remember there was conversations where it's just like, oh man, this is rated PG. That's a big deal. And then you watch it, you're like, I totally get why. And this is going to be an interesting conversation for many reasons. One of them being John Mills. Kessel Junkie is not present. He had other obligations. He has this thing called a family he had to tend to. So it is just going to be you and me, Dr. Sci-Fi himself, Darren Moser, who was not present last week.
That's right. John got a mysterious envelope under the door and disappeared for an unknown reason. We'll have to ask him about that when he returns next week.
Now, Darren, last week we did a House of Anderson episode where we did a pickup from a previous director that you actually weren't involved with.
Which was funny because I was off grid last week, so I didn't even know you guys are recording. All of a sudden, my podcatcher is like, "Hey, new Houselights episode." I'm like, "Oh, it's good to know I matter, guys. Thank you so much." No, we were in constant contact, but that's a great idea to pick up because a lot of those early directors that you guys covered, their entire works have now produced more. Like James Cameron has put out another movie. I mean, granted, that's not the best example of a director producing more work since it takes so long between films. But so okay,
but,
so
we got Nolan, Cameron, and here's the thing: is we talked with the listeners, and we kind of teased that we were going to give you another week of vacation from the Houselights because Anderson just came out with Asteroid City, and John and I were going to try to see that and then podcast about it and then do Incredibles next week. But, the stars did not align. We weren't able to see Asteroid City, and, I just missed you so much that I wanted to talk about Incredibles with you.
I would love to talk about Asteroid City, so I think we could still pick that up at some point.
Hey,
but
good
all
to
three
know.
of us could talk about it. I mean, it's I don't dislike Wes Anderson, but Asteroid City does look interesting to me.
Specifically you, and longtime listeners know that's definitely his wheelhouse.
A Wes Anderson sci-fi take. Like, what could that be?
Where were you, Darren? Where were you when this movie came out?
Oh, I thought you were talking about my vacation. I'm like, it's a little personal, Tristan. I didn't plan on sharing that, but
no, 2004. Did you see this in theater? What were you wearing? What were you thinking? What's going on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is, Pixar is on its meteoric rise where you're just cranking out hit after hit. They're still, I think, doing only one a year at this point. But yeah, so 04, I'm in college. I'm a film student, so of course I'm going to go see this movie in the theaters. And yeah, you were right. This movie, it's so interesting. I really, at some point, want to make sure we talk about, not in a negative way, but talk about the kind of movies we're getting from Pixar now, and this, which is in that kind of, like I said, that beginning meteoric rise. Because, like you said, they brought in Brad Bird. He's the first outside director to Pixar, and everything I'm reading about this movie is this was a movie he had to tell. He wanted to tell. He had this nugget of an idea, this superhero family. And it shows. It shows in every frame that this is a story that he was passionate about, that he had to tell. Like, he would, draw it with a crayon and a flip book if it got it out. But he got this chance from Pixar, which is kind of surprising. as so far as his previous directed film was not financially successful, which usually you either have to wait a long time to get let back in, or you have to know the right person. I think there's a little more of the latter
Yeah.
to bring him into Pixar. But yeah, so back to '04, like you said. Yeah, I think a bunch of us just went and saw it in theaters because it's the year's Pixar movie. They had shown that it's worth seeing that year's Pixar movie, whatever it is, because it's going to be something different. Meaning, the previous year you had bugs and you had toys and you had more likely you were going to get something fresh and new every single year, and it was always going to be something you weren't expecting, and it'd be fun to tell. And even just the posters, which were very minimal, like it was just the eye, not the eye like in your head, but like the incredible eye
The
on
letter
the
I, yeah.
logo. And I remember seeing that. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it looks interesting.
But
And
it has the label Pixar on it, so
it
it
has
must be good.
Pixar, the big old red poster with the gold and white eye in the middle, and there's little Pixar at the bottom. You're like, okay, I'm sold. And movie tickets are $5, so I can afford to to take a chance
Oh man, those were the
on.
days.
I know, but what about you? Where were you in '04? Were you starting your family already? Did you have your Helen Parr by your side, or
Not in 2004. Like you, that was the beginning of my freshman year. Like I was in college like you in 2004, but I was I graduated in May of 2004 from high school, started in August for college, and I honestly don't remember much about seeing this film. I had to have seen it, right? It's one of those where you're just like, of course I saw it. Like when I was in college, I saw almost everything in the theater because
unless
like
you had some summer job on a ranch in Texas and you were never near a movie house? Like, I can't imagine you not seeing this.
yeah, that's the thing is that like I was in a college town that had nothing to do. Like it was a rinky dink college town in the middle of nowhere, and there was nothing. There was a crappy mall, a Steak and Shake, and a movie theater. That was it. And so like unless you just want to just hang out at the Union, you would go see a movie. So I'm pretty sure I saw this in theater, and it was this is one thing that like I wanted to talk about the history real quick of not the full history, but when you're talking about like hit after hit, like just just here's a little lead up to the Incredibles.
What's their
95
repertoire?
yeah, 95 Toy Story, 98 A Bug's Life, 99 Toy Story 2, 2001 Monsters Inc., 2003 Finding Nemo, and then 2004 The Incredibles.
Gosh. And all of
Holy crap.
those are amazing.
Yes, every single one of those was a massive hit. And like you said, Brad Bird was the first outsider because with those movies that I mentioned, you had Lasseter, you had Stanton, you had Unkrich, you had Doctor, uh, Silverman. Like those were the people that they were Pixar.
Yeah.
Like if that they were the creative force, all of those men were the creative force of Pixar. Now, obviously, there's thousands of people
Right.
that it
They're
takes
the
to make
head.
this film, but they're the head.
They're the ones who
Um,
founded the studio. Uh,
And on top of that, Brad Bird with The Incredibles. It was the first and only time, barring its own sequel, who was the director who wrote the story and the screenplay.
mm.
He's the
So
only one who's done that
it
in
was
the
his
history.
film.
It
Yeah.
was his. This is very much Brad Bird. And like you talked about with Iron Giant being such a failure, even though it was a commercial failure,
Right.
even if it was
Commercial failure. Yeah.
even though it was an artistic success, he had a friend in John Lasseter, and Lasseter asked him a couple of times to come over to Pixar, and he kept saying he's like, no, I'm doing this, I got a thing with Warner Brothers, no, I'm doing Iron Giant. And then when they failed to promote Iron Giant, Brad Bird said, all right, I'll come over. And Lasseter said, okay, like we want you. We know that you know what you're doing, even though you haven't done CGI before. What's the story you want to tell? And Darren, just like you said, Brad Bird said, this is the movie I want to make. This is the story I got to tell. And Lasseter was 100% behind him. But then they had to pitch it to the bean counters, and they said they told him how long it was going to take to make and how much it was going to take to make, and they're like, but he put it in under budget, under time, and it cost less than Finding Nemo. and
Wow.
it was, yeah, it just it hit it out of the park.
Well,
Can you
let's talk about the money and then
let's
the
do it.
technical, because I think a couple amazing things is one, when we say started making this movie, he came over to Pixar in 2000, 4 years before this movie comes out. Because that's the thing, is like these movies take years to make. They're overlapping the production cycles so that they can release. At this point, they're still kind of every year, 1 to 2 years, you're getting a Pixar movie. It's not
Mhm.
quite the 1 to 2 per year that we kind of have now. But so yeah, so not only are they having the forethought to be like, hey, we have a pretty good well of stories that we're telling right now, but we have to keep that cycle going, and you have to invest in it, or we're going to run dry, and you're going to have like a 5 year period where you have no Pixar movie, and you can't have that. But on top of that, you have something like The Incredibles. And I think what the bean counters were probably reacting to was, we're doing humans, which is the first
Yes.
film that do humans. And so you have skin, you have hair, you have water, you have cloth. And those are all really hard to do. And Pixar has this talent of like, well, we'll invent the technology on the way as we get there, because we have to. It's the mother of necessity to get us there. And yeah, I mean, granted, okay, rewatching this movie here in 2013, it does feel early. Pixar has a vibe now. It has a look. It's not a bad look, but
Right.
their current stuff has so much detail and depth and color that just wasn't possible in '04. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just it feels a little rubbery. Feels a little cartoony in that
Elastic, if you
regard.
will.
Yeah, which again, it works. It's not like, oh, well, we need to throw this in the dumpster because it just looks like Plan 9. It's not that.
Yeah,
But
it's really funny when you compare, like, one time I did a double bill with my daughter of Toy Story and then Toy Story 4,
oh my gosh.
and it's hilarious.
The first one, they're just
Just
walking around in a bright day sunlight, the shadows, oh my gosh, there's no depth. It's just
and then you look at Toy Story 4, which when that came out, that was the most advanced animation of anything, like,
yeah.
of any of its peers. Just the style that they chose. They even shot it in they even, quote unquote,
Hey,
shot it
I
in
mean, we're not talking
anamorphic.
about Death of Field. I like every shot had like the I'm just picturing when they're in the shop and there's like the little motes of dust in the air, and you're just like, yeah, pick Toy Story 1 is like, or 4 is like, hold my bag. Toy Story 1, just take a look at this gorgeous cinematic anamorphic shot.
I
Oh,
remember when the second one came out, Incredibles 2 came out in
that's right.
2018,
Which is
which is
also
a
a huge jump.
huge jump from 2004 to 2018. I remember, like, I saw a meme where someone took a picture of Par
Okay.
of Mr. Incredible. It was a film still that they released in promotion of the movie, and then it was a high resolution still, and this dude zoomed in as far as he could, and he zoomed in on his sweater, and you could see millions of fibers on his sweater, from this one film still. And you're like, this is why it took 14 years.
Right. Exactly. And yeah, I mean, we'll get to it when we eventually cover Incredibles 2 in a couple weeks. But yeah, that'll be another interesting comparison, especially with the direct sequel to this movie. But numbers wise, like you were asking,
Yes,
the
yes, numbers,
budget
sorry.
is around 92 to 145 million. I don't have an exact number, but that's a lot in 2004. Like that's a lot of money
That's a
for
lot of money.
but it made 631 million worldwide. It made so much money. It did really, really well. And yeah, I'm sure they bought a couple more, buildings for Pixar's campus or something like that. But uh, yeah, I mean, and we talk about like that meteoric rise, but it's really only possible because of continued success. I mean, you look at another house like Don Bluth, who is doing okay and is making movies, but they're not getting this 5 times, 6 times, 7 time return, which you can then turn around and invest in the technology, in the people, in the capital. And you need that. Otherwise you don't become Pixar. You don't, blow up in that regard, because this movie is sitting on the budgets and the box office of the previous, that to fund that R&D for cloth sim and water and all of that, uh, and they're keeping that snowball going.
And one thing that actually was used on the development of this movie, since you're talking about it, was, I cannot remember the name of it, but it was a new lighting software program that they themselves developed, where you could adjust the lighting in a scene and see what the shot would look like in a tenth of a second. Before that program was written, it would take 20 to 33 seconds
It's a night and day.
for it to
Yeah.
render out. I mean, as someone who is, like, you've worked behind the scenes, I've worked behind the scenes, like when dealing with editing or animation or anything like that, going from 30 seconds to a tenth of a second is an absolute money saver, game changer. I mean, I'm not saying anything revolutionary here. Like,
Right.
people who have office jobs, like, if a Word document took 30 seconds to save as opposed to a tenth of a second, you'd feel it throughout your day. It would ripple throughout your day with everything that you do. And just imagine doing that constantly in
Well,
animation. It's,
I
it's
think
crazy.
that to bring it back around to Brad, I think looking at this and looking at a lot of what he did in The Iron Giant, one of the big things in The Incredibles is storyboarding. I think he had them really storyboard out, and not that other movies don't storyboard, but um, especially with animation,
Yeah.
especially since you're literally going to only animate what is in the shot. uh, Storyboarding is so important to get that vibe and pacing and motion and energy across. I've seen some animatics of like the part where Dash runs on water and fights the bad guys. Like that sequence has been shown in many of the behind the scenes, and really shows that shot for shot of what we eventually get. And especially with this, not only a director moving to Pixar, but he's also moving from 2D to 3D animation,
Right.
uh,
That's huge.
which is huge, because some people don't make that transition, and or they're like, we have to do it the way that I did it in the 2D world, and it takes 8 times as long and isn't financially viable.
One thing that I really appreciated when I read about this, when I appreciate about Brad Bird, is that when he went to Pixar and, Lasseter went back for him, and they told him how long it would take and how much it would cost, and the bean counters gasp. One thing he said was, "Give me your malcontents. Like, give me people who are who you think you're going to lose at Pixar. People who you think
Mm,
are going to quit, move on, transfer. Give me those people. Give me people who aren't satisfied in their jobs."
because we're
And
gonna give them a challenge
because we're
and
yeah,
kick their
exactly,
butt.
because we're
Yeah.
going to give them a challenge. And so Brad Bird knew how to work with artists, and
Mm.
he knew that, like, going, like, even
We
though
talked
the
about that last time with Iron Giant, and
yes,
the way he
exactly.
approached characters and animation and how he was a leader. I think that's his biggest strength.
Just in that one little story shows how much of a leader he is with the artistically minded, because even though Pixar started in 95 and this is, 2000 when he starts on Incredibles,
Right. 5 years later.
it's only been up and running 5 years, but yet they've already established themselves.
Although I guess
And
technically, sorry, that they did start before 95, because that's when Toy Story came out. So obviously a
right,
company before, but yes,
you're
it's a very
right, you're
young
right.
company at that point. Yeah.
A very young company, but yet they've already established themselves with a specific style, and and joie de vivre, I don't know what to say, je ne sais quoi, and so that's
Stop making up
enough.
words, Tristan.
That's enough for some people to get a little frustrated because they're not doing anything new. The idea that this is their first movie with people, not like, not toys,
What does a
bugs, or
Pixar person
monsters
look
or
like?
fish. Yeah.
Like that hasn't been defined. Yeah. How caricature do they become? because they are caricatures, and I think that's smart because you need to stay on firmly on this side, the good side of the uncanny valley. And so, I mean, yeah, we all look at Bob Parr and we're like, there's no way that man's sitting in a car. Like he's
Right.
huge.
He's not going to exist in real life, but
No,
you're
but it
if you
works.
have the Final Fantasy CGI movie that went for
Spirited
realism.
Within, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Spirited Within. Like that, you watch
Or
that
sorry,
today, you're
The
just
Spirits Within, but yes, yes.
yeah. Oh wait, I think you combined Spirited Away
I did.
and
I did. Yes. The
uh,
Spirits Within, yeah. Which was
somewhere around in
good,
there.
but that was like firmly like going for photo real, and
Yes,
yeah.
and it's now firmly in the uncanny valley, even though it was
Yes.
trying to go for photorealism. And so with Incredibles, like we talked about, even though it came out in 2004 and you're just like, oh, this can't even compare to the type of animation that they're doing today, it's still okay because it has its own style. With Final Fantasy, you're like, ooh, this is really, really dated. Like this is
Right.
rough.
I mean, there's cinematic animation in video games that look better than that movie did, which again, granted, I mean, technology marches on. We just talked about Pixar does that to a point. So it's
Hmm.
not like that is its own fault, but yeah, it in coming up with that stuff. And again, like you said, when this movie came out, everyone was talking about it. They're talking about that retro future 60s look. And, just like it was this new world, and but it was like you were reading a comic book. It's like Metroville, and like the superhero names all sounded ridiculous. Like it wasn't trying. It's interesting kind of comparing it to where Marvel went very like realistic, not as much in the visuals, but in the world. Like there's still a government and money and the internet and all this like real stuff. This was like, and this car transforms into another car and all this, it's more fantastical because that's a comic book. It's a fun story.
I really do love. I think when people think The Incredibles, it's kind of ubiquitous with retrofuturism.
Yeah.
As you were talking about, I feel like that's kind of a mainstay of this picture, and this is what it stands out. This is one reason why it stands out from the rest. Now, regardless of it being about humans and not fish or toys or
Or
monsters, but
monsters.
but like the retrofuturism, the whatever it's called, gooby, like a
Oh,
architectural style.
Googie. Yeah.
Is it googie? It's
Googie.
good. You're
Yeah.
right, googie,
Yeah.
not gooby. Um, I,
I've
I, I
made
reg-
I've made some Googie art pieces in laser cut acrylic. So yeah, I've looked up
oh,
that stuff,
nice.
but I know what you mean. That kind of like, it's not Art Deco. Like that's a very different style, but it is
Yeah,
like things are kind of drippy and a lot of ovals and triangles and those kinds of shapes.
yeah. It's one of those things where you know it when you see it, and this is definitely one of those things. And Brad Bird was inspired a lot by the 1960s spy film,
Yeah, or
and
Bond. I mean Bond, like right there,
Bond,
you see
easy,
it
right
all
there.
over.
And they tried to. Speaking of Bond, they tried to get John Barry to do the music of The Incredibles,
Oh,
which is
okay.
crazy to me.
I
Apparently, he
mean,
even did some
Giacchino did it, and
demos.
he did an amazing work. So I don't really want to see what he did, but that's cool though.
I was gonna say it was just like Giacchino. I don't know. Um, I mean, he straight up did his best John Barry impression.
He did.
With
He did.
doing this film, and so it's interesting that they got John Barry. He did some demos, but yet it didn't work out. But then they got somebody to do a John Barry impression.
Yeah, that's true. Now that I'm kind of thinking of direct Bond music, like I couldn't tell you the name of the film, but like kind of like when he's skiing or like those action sequences where Bond's trying to get away, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of brass music riff you get in the background, you get a lot of that in The Incredibles. Like you could edit, if you were a skilled editor, Bond clips over Giacchino's score and it would fit. It would totally fit.
One of my favorite audio Easter eggs was when Elastigirl is in the jet, the Learjet, not Learjet.
But the jet, yeah. There's like one jet,
The
but yeah.
jet. It's the same kind of jet that was in.
Gulfstream, I think. What you
Yeah,
mean?
it was the
Yeah.
same kind of jet that was in Goldfinger.
Oh, okay.
And when we first see that, we get a little bit of James Bond. Like we get
Mm.
it's a little, it's not just an homage. We actually hear a few bars from James Bond, from John Barry's work, and it's a nod, an homage, if you will, to a. I
Oh
guess I should,
yeah.
even though I
Well,
said it was more
again,
than homage.
you have a director who loves the era. You have a composer that loves, those films. Like, that's the kind of story. I think honestly, it's interesting. There's almost something visceral about a movie where the audience picks up on that. Like, it's almost subconscious where you can tell the love and energy that was put into something. Like, it doesn't feel manufactured. It feels like birthed and created in a way. And it's almost like, again, I couldn't tell you what that is or how, where in the image I'm seeing that. It's a kind of an all or nothing package kind of feeling. But do you get what I'm saying?
I totally get what you're saying, and one thing that really that is my go-to example of the opposite of that is the movie Public Enemies by Michael Mann. It was starring Johnny Depp, and it's a gangster film that takes place in like 20 Chicago or
Right.
something like that, or 20. It might have been Los
Yeah.
Angeles. I'm not
Gangster
quite sure.
era Chicago, or yeah, that time.
Yeah, gangster era, everything like
Tommy
that.
guns and caps and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Michael Mann was an early adopter of digital tape, and then and digital recording and everything like that. So like if you look at I'm totally blanking now, but like if you look at Collateral, like that was shot
Right.
on digital tape. That has a really distinct and really cool documentary type style, and it's set in modern day LA, and it's shot at nighttime. And so it kind of serves a feeling. With Public Enemies, he did the same thing, but yet it takes place
Hmm.
in the gangster era, and
Okay.
so your brain does a complete disconnect. Even though we are smart and we understand that we're watching Johnny Depp, not this gangster,
Yeah.
and we know it's not a documentary,
It doesn't
but
feel
it doesn't feel real, it
it,
doesn't feel right. It feels like someone's there with a camera crew, not you, the
it's
audience, seeing what's happening.
it's kind of the difference of watching an 80s Conan sword and sorcery versus like a modern 120 frame shot, sorcerer pick. It's almost too clean. Like, it's like stuff in the old time needs to have grain and
Yeah.
age to it. And it's like you can make it where it's like this looks like a soap opera. It doesn't look, like it's too evenly lit or it's too but yeah, well, again, you were talking about lighting. I mean, I always love the stories of Pixar as they're developing, of because Brad talks about, when he came over, he's like, the the interfaces are very complex, and it's very like, it's difficult to make the shot, to make it do what you want. And so I think it's good having someone like Brad or other new directors come in periodically to be like, hey, well, if we made this tool do this, and this, or the rig for the character have manipulators here, here, and here, it makes our job 10 times easier because we're bringing this experience. And it's that's what's so great about Pixar. I mean, not that other companies don't do it, but Pixar has that innovation of, you know, yeah, several times during a production, they are also inventing better ways to tell those stories, not just tell them in the story, but tell them in the tools that they use to make the CGI. It's always a fun story to hear.
So with this story, I mean, we're 30 minutes in, and we haven't even really talked about the plot, but that's okay because we're bragging on Brad Bird.
Yeah,
We're
we're
talking
talking
about all
more
of his
about
strengths.
Brad than we probably have in any other time. So that's good.
It's true. So I think this is one of those films where if you're deep in superhero culture, and this was before the boom
Right.
of
This is pre
superheroes.
08. So
This
it's post Sam Raimi Spider Man, but pre
yes,
Iron Man Marvel Superdom.
this was even pre Batman Begins. Like this was a year before Batman Begins came out. So
Right.
like this is right before the boom, but it's starting to get more and more popular. But if you're steeped in superhero culture, because if you're a nerd who actually like reads comic books and reads Marvel Civil War and stuff like that, uh you understand that this is a type of storyline that has been told several times, but it's always interesting to see it in a different setting or in a new way, where it's the idea that superheroes um, are more of a liability than they are a
Right.
savior. You know, are you
Right.
going
Comics
to
always
just
hand wave that away. They're like, oh, and then Batman goes back to his cave and nothing bad happens, but he smashed up, downtown Gotham, and who's got to clean that up? Like, it never deals with that.
well, what I'm saying is that sometimes comics do deal with that, but that's the crux of the story. You're
Right.
right that comics often do kind of wave that away, but then when it is talked about, it's a
Well, you have that
universe world spanning
inciting
thing.
incident of the superheroes get sued for property destruction and
Right.
damage. And that literally kicked that's what's the hook. Cause otherwise you're like, oh, it's a superhero movie. Oh, they got married. Oh, they're fighting. And then all of a sudden you get that news flash of like a superhero has been sued and Superior Court. And that's where you're like, oh, this world is going to be different.
Hmm.
And I'm interested in what they're going to do. And then you get the rest of the story. So
Yes, and I think that hook is what makes it interesting. That's the hook that really brings you in, because it's funny how they make the opening scene, like the prologue, if you will, kind of feel a little more 50s ish,
yeah, it doesn't feel, which it should. It should not
which it
feel like the
should.
60s.
But then once we get past it and he's working insurance and everything like that, and he's driving around, it feels more like the 60s. Like it would have been easy to just go, this is the shtick, this is the feeling, this is the vibe of the movie, and do it all throughout. But to kind of go back and show the history of Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl, and it feels like even further beyond our own world,
Right.
is a really nice attention to detail, and something that you would see from the director of The Iron Giant.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, and you have, yeah, again, you have that retro future vibe. It again, just overall, it's a well told story. You get great establishment of the characters early on. It's a relatable story. I mean, we're not superheroes. We don't have superpowers, but we are fathers. We have families. We have children. We have dreams and aspirations. We have jobs. Like, in a lot of ways, we can relate to all these characters, even though they're superheroes. They still punch the clock and have kids that fight in the car. And like, so it is not like sometimes movies can't make that connection with a superhero because they're just so far removed from everyday life or anything remotely realistic. But that's not the case in this movie. You understand Bob's kind of frustration of, I have this power, but I'm stuck in a, the most soulless, crushing insurance job. Like, they make it really apparent. But yeah, and then you can just the way the story flows, and even just the powers. Like, I love the powers the family has, and Brad Bird has
Hmm.
talked about, it's the, I mean, we could all say, oh, well, he's Superman and she's, Mr. Incredible. Like, we could, it's very Fantastic Four-ish in
Yes.
kind of, uh, but it's deeper than that. They gave it a couple of passes, and I love, you know, that Dash is the super hyper energetic boy, and it's like, yeah, because that's a boy, and Helen's the mom pulled in a million directions that has to, like, I love the
Literally and figuratively, yeah.
literally, and so what is driven to create these abilities, and Frozone's just too cool. It all matches. So it's very well done. Like you said, it is one of the best superhero movies, regardless of animation or anything, just period. In general, it is a great superhero movie.
Speaking of cool, one of the reasons why Frozone was voiced by Samuel L. Jackson is because Brad Bird said, I wanted him to have the coolest voice. And they went with one of the coolest guys. And so they had Samuel L. Jackson. And this was his first voiceover role, which is
Oh,
crazy
really?
to me,
Okay.
because in 2004, I mean, like, we're in 2023, and Sam Jackson has been working nonstop since the 80s,
Yeah.
and even by 2004, he's just in everything. And the idea that this is his first voiceover role was just mind blowing to me. But that was one thing that really, I know this is an obvious thing to say, but the voice cast really sets this movie apart, because I can't picture Mr. Incredible with anybody else's voice than Craig T. Nelson.
Right.
And Holly Hunter, eh, I mean, I love Holly Hunter and I love Holly Hunter's voice, but to me, Holly Hunter is Holly Hunter. Like
Right.
you could,
Right.
you could not, you
It's
could,
like Harrison Ford or any other character that
right.
like transcends their role.
And she has such a distinct voice that she has, you know, she has that voice, you know, it's just like, it just kind of talks out the side of her mouth. It's just so great. I love it. I love her so much. She's one of my favorites. But you could call Elastigirl Holly Hunter in the movie, and I would still be okay with it. I'd be like, yeah, no, that makes sense. And Jason Lee got the role because of him playing Azrael in Dogma and being the bad guy in Dogma. And one of my favorite uh, little bit is Sarah Vowell, who plays Violet. He would listen to Val on NPR's This American Life, and he thought to himself, she would make a perfect Violet, and she'd never acted before. And he called her up and tried to convince her to do it, and she was on the fence. She's like, I don't know, I'm a journalist, I'm a critic, I don't know if I, could do a movie. And they took one of her This American Life segments, animated it around her voice, sent her that clip in order to convince her to do it, and that's
See,
what
that's
convinced her
worth
to do it.
every bit of overtime or whatever it was to like seal the deal because they knew
Right.
what they had to do. Well, and I mean, speaking of voices, I love the the Edna Mode story, as we've all heard of,
Yes.
where they tried it with different people. And then, eventually Brad Bird, the director, the writer, the everything, lays down a scratch track of like, okay, it should just sound like this. And then everyone's like, well, that's the voice. Like, just use that. And it's hilarious. It's a great voice.
Well, even Lily Tomlin, like they wanted Lily friggin' Tomlin to do it. And she heard the scratch track. And she was the one who said, why on earth do you need me? Just use the scratch track. And I had zero for years. I had zero clue it was Brad Bird who
Well, it
did
doesn't
Edna's voice
sound like, yeah, it's so different and distinct. Like you would never put that voice with that face ever.
ever. And she Edna has one of my favorite lines in cinema history, and it's, I never look back, darling. It only
Distracts
distracts
from the
from the
now.
now.
Yes, I was thinking that exact line when you said the best line. I'm like, that's yeah. I also love where she's like, yes, couple. We'll talk too much, and it's
And
a
then
fun character.
it's one of my favorite characters. I love like her segment when she's showing Elastigirl all the suits
All
and
the
the
suits, yeah.
like everything like that. That's my favorite part of the movie. My absolute favorite part of the movie is Edna Mode.
It's kind of the most Bondish too. That's the Q. She is the
It's the Q.
Q
She's Q.
of this movie. You're right. That's a good point. And then Ella's just look of shock of like, what have you done? Like, why did you make all of these?
But then Elizabeth Pena, who did Mirage, who's sadly no longer with us, she died at the age of 55. But Mirage was a perfect ambassador to the world of Bond. I feel
Mm,
like you have this comic book movie, at the like you have this comic
right.
book movie at the beginning, and then you get thrown into this retrofuturism of what's going on. Like it's not really comic book film anymore. They're down on their luck. It's become a family drama. Not literally. Don't take me too
Right.
literally here. But then you get introduced to Mirage, who
Has the call to
transitions.
adventure and for
Yes,
Bob.
the
Yeah.
call to adventure, like the she navigates Mr. Incredible to the island, which is very Bond, and the
Oh
private
my
jet,
gosh.
and the
It's
like
a
so much about.
volcano island lair. Like you can't get
Yeah,
more Bond than
you
that.
can't get more Bond than that. Yeah, and so I feel like her that sexy, just Mr. Incredible, like that, like she was built for Bond, and I'm so glad that she was able to do this.
Oh, definitely. And like you said, I also like the fact that, she's not just this mouthpiece. She's obviously been, working with Syndrome for a long time and he trusts her, but like to a point, like he's still going to do what he's going to do. But there is a little bit of like, she's trying to sway him a little bit. And then she finds out exactly where she ranks in his life and it's not very high. So, and then
Yeah,
obviously she turns and helps them out. And, um, Yeah, just I mean, let's talk about cool sequences for a second because the Mr. Incredible figuring out the plan on the supercomputer while Helen is also at the same moment realizing like, is Bob cheating on me? What's going on? The dichotomy of that is just one of the best scenes ever in general. It is like the tension is rising. He's like really he's uncovering the plan not in a monologue, which is kind of nice and refreshing, but instead through very detailed PowerPoint presentation on the supercomputer, but which I guess is just as bad if you think about like, why did you make this? Like, or did Syndrome wake up someday and be like, you know what? I forget the plan. Mirage, you make some sort of thing that'll encapsulate it in about 5 minutes. Because anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a
You
story.
dog, you got me
Yeah.
monologuing.
That I think is one of the best lines in general. But like the fact that they are transparent enough to recognize that monologuing is a bad thing in the movie itself. But I love that sequence, like the music, him realizing all of his friends have been killed, which on many further viewings, you realize that all of those friends that we see eliminated were at his wedding. They were used in the pre or the kind of the beginning shots
Mhm.
of the movie, and so these are his friends that he knows that have been killed, not just random supers. Oh, such a
And
good sequence.
speaking of which, like, there's so much of that, like, that's the reason why it's rated PG. I remember watching this.
Oh, the
I do
death.
remember,
Yeah.
yeah,
Implied death, but yeah.
implied death, but the adult themes there in this movie, like dealing with infidelity, and
Yeah.
like, now, granted, it wasn't real, like he wasn't
But it
actually,
was perceived infidelity.
the perceived infidelity and the conversation of cheating and lying within a marriage, and then like Mr. Incredible threatening Mirage, like threatening to kill Mirage. Like, he's the good guy, he's the superhero, but then again, he just thought he lost his family,
Right.
and like he thinks he loses his family and then realizes that he can't go through that again, he can't like go through that kind of loss, and like this is all really heavy stuff
Yeah.
for a kids movie.
But the best kid movies don't treat kids like kids. Like they don't keep kids like they're stupid or they don't understand
Mhm.
there are bigger things in life. They may not get it, but you treat it, you always aim at like a higher reading level than they're able to get, and they'll, in general, but like you're able to, they don't understand everything, but they understand what's happening, and the emotion comes through even if they don't understand the themes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I'd say like the Edna stuff is my favorite. I love the workout sequence, like when
Yeah.
he's
The
lifting
train and
trains, yeah, like literal trains, and like he's measuring his waist and getting slimmer, and that also leads into the whole infidelity storyline, because
right.
you see a lot of that in pop
He's got the
culture
new
and also in real
car.
life.
He's
Yep.
got the, and yeah, from the outside, like when Edna talks to Helen, it's like, oh yeah, like, and the secret phone call, like it doesn't look good on paper.
Yeah,
So
it really doesn't, but it's so fascinating to me because of how well thought out and how well directed and how well written everything is. Like, this, like almost every single sequence is utilized well. Going
that's true.
back,
There's not really a wasted minute. Like I'd be hard pressed to find a sequence or a scene where it's like, oh, they didn't really need this. It's a very tight film.
I kind of was teetering on my ranking for this film, because in my Pixar list, I'm looking at my Pixar list right now, and it's definitely in the top 10. Like, I have it as number 7 in
Okay.
my Pixar list.
How many roughly are there? Like 20-ish at this point?
Oh geez.
Pop quiz,
Um
hot shot.
yeah, I'm gonna have to count. So I'll just do, like, you count for me. I'll say it out loud. So Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, Wally, Up, Toy Story 3, Cars 2, Brave, Monsters University, Inside Out, The Good Dinosaur, Finding Dory, Cars 3, Coco, Incredibles 2, Story 4, Onward, Soul, Luca, Turning Red, Lightyear, and Elemental, that just came out last month.
27.
27 films. So out of 27 films, this is number 7 on my list.
That's pretty high.
And like the only ones before it are like so my ranking is Toy Story, Toy Story 3, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., Wall-E, Inside Out, then The Incredibles.
Yeah.
Like that's my list.
And most lists will
And
probably be similar, maybe a slight jumbling of those, but they're all
right.
probably up there.
And so it's hard for me for my star ranking, because I know you don't do half stars, but like Toy Story 1 and 3 are 5 stars for me, and then Toy Story 2 is 4.5. Monsters Inc.
True.
Is a 4.
But you're not
Wall-E is
needing
a
to rank
4.
this amongst, I guess it depends on how you're looking at it. Like, and we've never really gone into the super depth of our rankings. Like, are we ranking
Yeah,
them amongst the other Brad Bird pictures? Are we ranking them amongst, like we've said many times, we'll look back at our list and be like, okay, well, I gave that a 4, but this other director did another movie that I also gave a 4, but I liked it in a very different way. So
right.
it's rankings, it's like the points in Whose Line Is It Anyway, where they also kind of don't matter at the same time as we also give them.
So
Uh,
I keep going back and forth on this one because I really enjoy this movie, but I throw it up against when I throw it up against other Pixar films, it's hard to give it the highest of honors because I enjoy other ones more. But when you look at the love and the care and the script and the voice acting, it's just like, man, what's missing for me here? And so I think for me, because I gave Iron Giant a
a
3.5.
3.5. Yeah.
And when I'm looking at my letterboxed, I have The Incredibles at 3.5. But the stuff that I've talked about, I feel like having this conversation with you, knowing more about the behind the scenes and what Brad Bird brought to the film, how they made it, and just talking about the music and the tempo and the vibe and the throwbacks, the homages and everything like that, I have to at least give it a 4. And so I think that's what I'm changing it to. I'm changing it on my list from 3.5 to 4, even though it's a struggle.
Well,
It's a deep
no,
struggle.
it makes sense though, because it's like that makes sense. This viewing, it moved up to a 4, and maybe next time you watch it through, it moves a little back down, or another
Hmm.
Pixar movie's come out, or another Pixar movie moves up. Like that, I mean, they're always evolving. And I always felt, I remember, one time going into Blockbuster, ask your parents, kids, about wishing that there was a different kind of rating system for films instead of just R, PG, PG-13 and such. I wish there was like a 4 or 5 bracket section where it was like, language, gore,
Hmm.
theming, and something like that. Something that kills me a little more. And they eventually did have a little more where they say like PG-13 because, and they'd have a couple extra lines saying,
Right.
drug, sex, and violence and things like
That
that.
was a big help.
That was a help. But I feel like the same thing is also kind of tricky with star ratings, because we're, again, distilling down into a single 1 to 5 number. Because you could say, like, on that list, that you love the story better than any of those other ones, even though it's number 7 on your list. Like, you love the story the best, or it has the best music, but it has to be baked into that singular number. Which is why I think we're all totally cool with the numbers shifting and moving up and down. I have the same kind of feeling where I gave Iron Giant a 4, which is a huge number. It is a great film. But yeah, I also look at, but do I think The Incredibles is not equal or better than the Iron Giant? Like, it starts to chase its own tail almost in that regard. I gotta give it a 5. It's an amazing movie. It sets his career aloft as he's
Hmm.
heading into this wonderful time with Pixar, as he's cranking out uh just a lot of hits, as we'll get to them. But again, I'll give it a 5, if nothing more, for the fact that I could always tell this was a story that Brad Bird felt he needed to tell, and he would have told one way or the other. Honestly, think about this. If the Iron Giant had performed well, I think Brad Bird would have told this in 2D with Warner Brothers.
I think you're right.
I think he would have had to tell it.
And if Warner Brothers Animation was still around.
And I mean, if the stars aligned in many other ways that did not happen in the prime timeline, but instead we got him at Pixar, and I think Pixar was very, reaped the benefit of this amazing creative person and all of the movies that he came after. We have a couple more animated. Then we're going to go into live action. Brad Bird's such an interesting tale of this combination. He's had a very interesting journey, but been also very selective, I think, in what he makes. I don't feel like he's had to get this to pay for that. It doesn't necessarily feel like he has anything that's, oh, you made this because you made us a ton of money. This was what you really wanted to do, and you made a ton of money last year, so now you get to make your perfect peach. And then that doesn't do well because nobody actually wanted to see that, and it doesn't feel like his career really had that path. Well, actually, I'll hold that in reserve until we get to 2015. So we'll circle back to that thought a little later. I'm looking at you, Tomorrowland. But but so far, Brad Bird, he's incredible, just like the movie implies.
So speaking of the future, Darren, what are we doing next week?
Next week, we are continuing our harrowing journey with the House of Bird, the Bird House, and we're jumping to 2007, because remember, guys, it takes a couple years to make an animated film. So we're going from 2004 to 2007 with Ratatouille. Thank you for showing us how to pronounce it in the trailer. Thank you so much, Brad Bird, here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.